Welcome back to Gentle Growth with Ivy. As always, this is Ivy, and today we have a special guest, Brandon, with us. Brandon, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm the mental health nut, Brandon Decremer. A pleasure to be here.
Awesome. It's my pleasure to have you here. So, what is it that you do?
I am a personal development one-on-one coach as well as a mental health advocate. Struggled with mental health my whole life, so it's big on my heart to impact as many people as I can.
Awesome. And what was your journey getting here?
So my journey was a pretty long one. I started My father committed suicide when I was 1 years old, and I didn't know about that until, well, I knew he passed away, but I didn't know how
Hmm.
until a therapist told me, "Hey, how does it make you feel that your dad killed himself?" And man, it was the day after Christmas. I think I was 7 or 8, and it caused a downward spiral in my life,
Oh,
an incredible downward spiral. I was in and out of psych wards, therapy, medications, you name it. I was on it at 22, on another vacation in a psych ward, I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, BPD, also known as EUPD sometimes these days. I, from that point forward, the doctor looked me in the eyes and said, "There's no cure for this. There's no medications, and there's not a lot of things you can do." That was comforting. So
mhm,
I read all the books, I Googled it. For the next 15 plus years, I became everything that BPD was. That's all I knew.
mhm,
And had moments of life that had sparks of fulfillment, but nothing, never ever any self love or self care at all, and
mhm.
never any really growth in life.
Wow. Yeah, I thought that was really hard how, like, your therapist just kind of sprung that on you. I feel like that should have been a lot more discussed before it was just kind of thrown at you that way. Um,
Yeah, it also kind of caused a little almost like PTSD about therapists, right?
mhm.
Like
Yeah.
from then moment on, I didn't connect with another therapist until I met one in my late 30s that kind of enjoyed, but otherwise I always had that like fear of therapists. I remember sitting in the car and my anxiety would be up if I had an appointment and I would skip them and everything else, even if I was like ordered to be there, whatever it was. I had like a fear of therapists. He should have talked to my mom and known I didn't
Yeah.
know because he shouldn't have been the one to tell me, right?
No, absolutely not. And I mean, that fear is very rightfully so. I can relate, to a certain extent there. I had a therapist that I wasn't very fond of, and I would want to skip appointments and cancel as well. He actually misdiagnosed me with bipolar. And so I was treated for that, for taking medication that I didn't need. And I resonate with how you said that when you were diagnosed with BPD, that just became your personality because when I was even misdiagnosed with bipolar, I still found the ways that it kind of fit me. And then just things would happen. I'm like, well, I'm bipolar, so, this is how it's going to go. And even though it was a misdiagnosis, I still, just that was who I was. Um, so I could really resonate with you on that because whenever you get diagnoses like that, it really sets you back at first, and you can become a victim to that diagnosis. And my previous podcast was all about getting out of that victimhood and being more of a survivor and a warrior with the illness.
Yeah, I totally understand that.
Hmm.
Like I said, I lived that victim prison in my own mental health for many years, and it was unfair to my loved ones, to my children's mother, to my newer wife. It was unfair.
Hmm.
Well, I have BPD, so I'm just having an episode like that's not who I really am. You have to deal with it, right? It's your
Hmm.
responsibility. I have an illness. I was like that for so long until this past year, to be perfectly honest with you.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, Same boat. I mean, diagnosed with anxiety at a very young age, and then depression at a very young age. But misdiagnosed with bipolar, and then corrected that diagnosis and was diagnosed with ADHD and PTSD as well. Um, it's like everything kind of makes sense at first, and you're like, wow, it's almost like a window's opened and you got some clarity. And so it's really hard not to just completely identify as the diagnosis at first because it feels like you have so many answers just finally falling out of the sky, I guess. Um, and that definitely gave me kind of like a new awareness whenever I was diagnosed, and so I could see what was happening, what I was doing, because of my illness. But I realized that I didn't like that, and that was whenever I said, okay, I need to find a better way to cope with this. I understand that my mental illness is causing this, but I also understand I don't need to behave in this way, and there are ways around it.
Yeah, definitely. I was the same way. I became, and I think a lot of us do. As a trained mindset coach now, I realize a lot of that more, that we become. Well, I have anxiety, so I can't go into that store. I can't do
Hmm.
that. I can't get out of my car or go into the store. I don't want to be around people. I can't do that.
Yeah.
So what happens is that's how our brains get wired. Our brain's job is to protect us. It's
Hmm.
to save energy. And it's easier to keep us in a mental spot, even if that mental spot is a panic attack.
Hmm.
It's easier for our brain to go there right away than it is for us to push through that, do the thing anyway, and then feel better. Because what happens when we push through that, do the thing anyway, and be better? And a lot of people don't know this. It's called the dopamine reward system. We actually release our own dopamine. The
Hmm.
dopamine that we're told we don't produce enough of, we can actually produce by doing what our minds don't want us to. And
Hmm.
a lot of people don't understand or even know that that's a thing.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense because whenever you finally get through something that you didn't necessarily want to do, but you do finally get through it and you get the result, and you're like, oh, wow, that wasn't too bad. And then you're proud of yourself for getting through it. That makes sense.
And you feel better, right?
Hmm.
Yep, I preach about this in my
Yeah.
content on my socials and to my clients all the time. Dopamine reward system.
Hmm.
You feel better. I mean, when I learned about this from, I actually learned about this from my mentor, the Mindset Mentor podcast, Rob Dial. He teaches this.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's just like people who go to the gym. Nobody necessarily wants to go there when you're on your way. Even, the big bodybuilders, they have their days where they don't want to go to the gym, but they go, they get that pump in, they get their workout
Feel
out,
that
and
happiness. And
yeah,
it's crazy, but
it absolutely works. Um, so what is the passion that drives you in this work?
in this work,
Hmm. Or in
the
life?
passion, the passion is I again, it goes back to my journey. For so
Hmm.
long, I hoped, I wished, I waited, I wanted, I prayed for, I wanted to be better. I wanted to be normal. I wanted to have normal reactions. I wanted to have normal emotions. I wanted to be a father that could be the cool dad, but then not get mad all of a sudden in like 2 seconds because something shocked me or whatever it may be.
Hmm.
But I never seen a way out of that. And then when I hit that who knows what amount of rock bottom, and I knew like, it's not going to get any better unless you do something. And then I
Hmm.
started slowly doing something. What do you do, right? I didn't know. So first I went to physical fitness and eating better because I used to be an athlete. So I knew, hey, when I worked out and I ate better, I felt a little better. So
Hmm.
let's try that. Then I found mindset training and started doing the things like the dopamine reward system and flipping your mindset and positive thinking and all of that. And then I was like, man, things are rolling along pretty good here, but my body hurts and I'm tired.
Hmm.
So mental recovery and physical recovery, I found were the fourth step. Like you gotta. So I started living my life like that, processing
Hmm.
my mental health management routine, processing it with mindset, nutrition, fitness, and mental and physical recovery. And I started living a life that I never expected that I could live, and really fast. Within
Hmm.
2 months, I'm doing things I never expected. I'm reacting in ways I never expected, and I'm feeling better. And what happened was I found self love for the first time in 37 years. I found self love through self care. And
Hmm.
then I said, I just felt it. I wanted to impact as many other people because there's a billion people in the world with mental health issues. 75% of those people have severe emotional, schizophrenic, manic, depressive, severe anxiety, and they have no options. They don't take care of it at all. The therapy doesn't work. They've been on 1,000 medications. And when I knew anybody could do this, it would just take a lot of work. I knew I wanted to grab my sword and shield and help out as many people as I
Yeah.
could in any ways that I can.
Absolutely. I 110% resonate there because that's how I was my whole life. I wanted to be normal. I wanted to know what was wrong with me and how to fix it and how to just be happy. I wanted to be able to be happy and enjoy, the small moments and just not live in misery. Um, and like a lot of people, I hit my rock bottom, and it was scary down there. It was very lonely, and it's almost like a death sentence in a way. You feel like there is no up, there is no getting out. But whenever you reach out your little hand, and you get some help, people start lending you their tools. That's the analogy I like to use. They start lending you your tools, and you get to create your own tools, and these tools truly help you get out of that hole. And what I want to do is I want to share my tools with others and teach them how to make their own too. So I
Yes,
really
yeah.
resonate with your story there. I like that. I like that. So I know you're working on a little project, maybe not so little. Do you want to talk about
Yeah, sure. I would love to. So maybe put my back against the wall a little bit.
it?
So for since I started getting into coaching and since I really started this process, I always wanted to be a writer my whole life. And now I'm addicted to pushing my comfort zone. So I said, you know what? I'm going to do it. Within 2 years, I'm going to write a book. And then one night, I was really burnt out after working all day and having a long day, and I couldn't look at my phone anymore. And I said, what would that book look like if you wrote a book? And within 20 minutes, I had all the chapters named, what I would have to research, what I would have to do, and how I could do that. So I walked in the bedroom and I told my wife, hey, I think I'm going to release this book sooner. And I showed her what I came up with, and she said, wow, that's amazing. Why don't you release it for May for Mental Health Month? I said, okay. So I got the writing and it's coming out great. So I have it all in line now to release a book called Simply Process Your Mental Health, which the four things I talked about earlier, it will go through mindset, nutrition, fitness, and mental and physical recovery. So by the time you get done with my short, easy to read with journal prompting book, you have your own unique to you built mental health management routine that you can feel your best. So then the therapists, the medications, the doctors, all of that, that can work better because your body and mind are in the best shape that you can get them in every day.
Hmm. I love that. That's um, that's going to be very useful for a lot of people because even though reaching out for help is what helps a lot, it can be very scary to reach out for someone. Um, and to have something, like a book where you can go at, self-paced and tailor it to your own needs without, maybe somebody trying to do your directions or anything. You can do it yourself. It's a lot less scary. I found a lot of my help in, self-help books and doing my own research and stuff. So I love that you're taking your life experience and then combining it with research and then putting it into a book to help others. So I'm looking forward to your book. I can't wait to see what it's all about and share it to my listeners as well.
Thank you. Well, for being a part of the podcast, you'll definitely be one of the first ones to get a copy.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. So what are some of the things that you help your clients with?
So, first and foremost, because I did mention with the book and the management routine, yeah, it takes everything, right?
Mhm.
It takes the whole process. Eating right, taking care of yourself. Physical fitness, I say this a million times. Physical fitness is the kryptonite to mental health. It releases the right hormones and everything in your body to really take control. And then recovery to help your body out. But the thing is without any of that, or none of that'll work without the perfect mindset. You need the mindset that no matter what comes along in your day, that no matter what happens outside that you can't control, that you can get through that. So the first thing that I do with any of my clients that I work with is we start with their mindset. We find out where are they? What are they thinking? What are they telling themselves about
Mhm.
themselves? Maybe about the future that they're fearing. That 99% of the times the things we fear about the future doesn't happen.
Mhm.
So I try to take that, listen, let them feel that, let them get it. Like, let's feel that. But then now, how do we get away from that so that's not where we're stuck? It's
Mhm.
okay to feel things, but we don't want to stay there. So I try to empower them, get them to a place where, okay, we had those bad feelings, the icky, messy feelings. We had them, we felt them, we journaled them, we spit them out, whatever it is. And now what's the news story that we tell ourselves?
Mhm.
What's a news story that we tell ourselves so we can be in that spot to conquer everything that we want in life? Because we all deserve that.
Mhm. Absolutely. I like how you say, the news story. I recently read a book called The Four Agreements. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Yes,
Um,
I am actually.
it's really good.
It
And
is.
what it talks about is creating your new dream, because it explains in a way that we have our own internal dream where we dream inside our head, and we go to sleep and we have those dreams, and then we have this kind of external dream where we're all dreaming this one reality, and it teaches you how you can change your dream, how you can change your reality, and honestly, I think the whole book can really be narrowed down to mindset. It your mindset truly affects your perception and how you see the world and how you intake the world. And I've said it before, two people can walk in to the same exact place and do the same exact activity, have the same conversations with the same people, and they can both walk out with two completely different experiences because of how they perceived what was going on. So I really like that you focus on mindset.
Yeah, it saved my life.
Mhm.
I was doing all the other stuff, right? That's why in my book, in my program for coaching and everything, it starts with mindset
Mhm.
because I had the nutrition, I had the fitness, I had the things going on, and I was still having a lot of that anxiety, a lot of those moments, a lot of that emotional control issues. And I was just getting like so frustrated. And then finding a simple podcast changed my life. Finding
Mhm.
a podcast, and that's why what you do is so important. One person listening to this today, you could affect that wants to do
Mhm.
something different tomorrow, and
Mhm.
that's why I commend anyone that does this kind of stuff.
Oh,
And
thank you.
it saved my life. I started thinking differently because what we think is how we feel,
Mm.
and how we feel is how we act.
Mhm.
So to me, that was a game changer, and it's hard. It's not I don't want to tell everybody like, oh, you got to change your mindset and then everything is great. It's hard. Like
Mhm.
I guess I'll give you an example. I was a big person that would worry all the time. So if I text my wife at 9 in the morning and then she didn't answer me till noon, I would be like, oh my God, she hates me. Oh my God, she's mad
Mm.
at me. She's,
I was there.
she's thinking this, or, oh, that would just kill me. So I
Yeah.
started going, no, she's at work. Everything's fine. She'll get a hold of you
Mhm.
later. No,
Mhm.
I had to repeat that over and over. There was days I was in tears because my mind was trying to hold me into my old feelings and I was trying to change it. I would have to go into the bathroom at work and cry because
I
I was so emotionally drained. After about 2 weeks of doing that, it got easier. I'd text
Mhm.
her, she wouldn't answer, like, oh, she's at work, not a big deal. And I wouldn't even worry
Mhm.
about it anymore. When you get into the habit of thinking differently, your body reacts to that because our
Mhm.
minds are trained. Our minds, that's what they do. They protect us. So it's trained to keep us in the feelings we're used to. If those are good, bad, or ugly,
Mhm.
it wants to keep us there because it takes more energy to change it.
Mhm. And I mean, we naturally go to what's familiar, and I can 110% once again resonate with that. I mean, my partner, he's a mechanic, so he's very busy at work, and I had a very like codependency with him at one point until I figured it out, and I'm able to you know work through all that on my own. um, I would do the same thing if I texted him and he didn't reply back, within an hour. My immediate thought was, oh my goodness, he's not alive anymore. A car done fell on him and, he's in the
Oh yeah.
hospital or something. And there was even times where I would call his work to make sure he was okay. And that's not okay. Like that was very extra, and I don't recommend people do that, especially on a regular occasion. That's not professional. It doesn't look good on you or your partner. Um, and whenever I spoke to my therapist about that, she was like, "Oh yeah, that's definitely something we have to work on." And For me personally, something that really helped was thinking of my brain almost as a radio. And so the way radio works is there's all these radio waves out in the air. There's all these constant channels in the air right now. All you have to do is tune your radio to that specific channel. If you tune your radio to a channel and you don't like it, you can tune to a different channel. If you don't like the music that's playing, you can tune to a different one, and you just keep tuning until you listen to something that you like. And so whenever I realize that my brain radio is playing a song that I don't like, then I can tune it. I can change what it is that I'm thinking. And it's really hard at first, especially if it's like obsessive thoughts, how mine were, thinking that my partner was hurt at work. Um, and so something that I had to do was stimulate my brain or body in a different way. And so if I was obsessing over my partner being okay at work or not, and I didn't want to do that, which, you know, who does, I would actually have to do something completely different. If I was sitting at work, because it even consumed me at work, I would have to stop what I was doing in that particular spot, and I'd have to move across the room and do something totally different so that my brain can activate some different thoughts, tune into a different radio frequency.
That's the way to do it. That is every listener out there. If you're struggling, if you're having those moments of you just cannot get out of that, do
Mm-hmm.
me a favor, recenter, stop. Because what's happening, especially with anxiety, what's happening is your blood pressure is raising, your
Mm-hmm.
adrenaline is raising, your heart rate is raising. Close
Yeah.
your eyes, stop, breathe through your nose and out through your mouth, not
Mm-hmm.
just 6 times, as long as it takes. Recenter, because what that does is it drops your blood pressure, drops your heart rate, and lowers the adrenaline and cortisol and starts the serotonin and dopamine. So when
Mm-hmm.
you're recentered, then, and you said the key word, do something different,
Mm-hmm.
different than you're doing. Move, go somewhere into a different room, even do a different activity, grab a book, go for a walk, do
Mm-hmm.
something different because that is the only way that you can recenter that mind.
A lot of times with my anxiety, um, I would freeze, and so I would think that to, calm my body, calm my breathing, calm my heart rate, calm my mind, I should just sit still and be calm and everything would just pass. But whenever I did that, I was focusing on my breathing and not in a good way, not focusing on trying to slow it down or anything like that. I was just focused and kind of freaking out over it like, oh my goodness, I'm not breathing normal. My heart feels funny, my head feels funny, my body feels funny, like everything just does not feel normal. And so I was increasing my anxiety by trying to calm it down by doing nothing. Just telling myself to calm down most definitely did not help. And so now, whenever I get anxiety, I like to sometimes move my hands and move my body. So I'll get up, I'll start cleaning. A lot of times I'll start organizing something, or I'll just completely get up and remove myself from the spot if I'm out in public. Say I'm at, maybe a Christmas or Thanksgiving dinner or something, and I'm in a big group of people and I'm getting anxiety. So I will completely walk out of the room and go to a completely different room, maybe spark up a conversation with a different person, but just do something different with my body, my mind, so that I'm not stuck focusing on the anxiety attack because it never helped. For the longest time, all I did was just focus on how I was feeling, and it didn't work. And now I move my body and do something else, and it goes away so quick.
Yeah, it's amazing because what
Hmm.
happens is I see this a lot in with my own anxiety and people I work with. What happens is we're thinking so much about what's happening. Well, like I said
Hmm.
earlier, your thoughts or your feelings, you're thinking so much about being in that that all you're doing is producing more of that. And I know this is easier said than done, but that's the times where you have to recenter and switch. Because if you're just like, oh, I can't get over this, like I don't know what's going on, I can't stop feeling like this. You're not gonna. You're
Hmm.
gonna stay there for sometimes hours, days. I mean, we've all been there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. What are some other things that you focus on with your clients during your program?
So big things, it all comes down to mindset, but how we get there. So the big things I do is setting new standards in your
Mm-hmm.
life, setting new, maybe you're the person that gets up 5 minutes before work like I was. Maybe now let's set new standards where we get up a little bit earlier. We eat a little breakfast, start that day with the right nutrients.
Mm-hmm.
And we start slow. Maybe it's 5 minutes earlier for that week. And then the next week you start a little more. And I add fitness, nutrition. I'm all about, just like my book, Simply Process Your Mental Health.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all about the simple. If
Mm-hmm.
you can't just jump into a routine and all of a sudden you get up 2 hours earlier, you eat 4 meals a day, you have a fitness routine, nobody sticks to that. You're not
Yeah,
going to do that.
very
So I try to simply add one or two things a week to my client's life that builds that routine
true.
and builds that management program so you stick to it because everybody can do a little bit more. It's
Mm-hmm.
that kind of the one of my favorite podcasters and authors and coaches in the industry, Ed Milet. He has a book which I highly recommend called The Power of One More. So, like one more set, one more step, one more phone call if you're into sales or whatever, just do one more because everybody can do one more of something. And after you do that, it's easy to do two more, three more the next week or whatever it is. So that's
Yeah.
one thing I really try to incorporate with my clients is setting new standards where for me, I hated getting up. I hated
Mm-hmm.
getting up early. I couldn't do it. I'd grab my lunch pail and be out the door and feel miserable all day. Now I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning on my own. I have an extensive morning routine and I never expected that. So what I did for myself was I set a new standard. Now my brain is used to that. The things we've been talking about this whole time is our brain gets used to stuff and we're not
Mm-hmm.
going to get out of it until we start to force it to do other things. And what happens? We set new standards. So if you're a person that never makes a bed in the morning, start by making your bed every day. What's going to happen is those times I go back into my bedroom and I look and I'm like, oh, the bed's already made. I didn't even realize I did it because it's a new standard for myself. It's the first thing I do every day.
Mm-hmm. And I like how you said add in something. I know I just mentioned the book, The Four Agreements, and it mentioned it as well. And I've also learned it along my journey. Whenever you're trying to stop something that you don't like that you're doing, it's a lot easier if you replace it rather than just taking it away. Um, say you're somebody who is struggling to stop smoking. I've personally never done it, but I hear that whenever you go to stop smoking, instead of just stopping and just throwing it away, replace it with maybe some mint gum, or I know they even have some like tobacco flavored gum and stuff like that. And so replacing your bad habit or whatever it is that you don't want to do with something that you do want to do can make a much bigger impact than just quitting in general.
Yes, I'm a firm believer in that. A process that
Hmm.
I learned, and this might be a Rob Dial process, but I can't remember. Process that I learned and that I use with everybody I work with is the 111. Every Sunday night, sit down and assess where you're at. Assess your habits, assess your thought habits, assess everything. Kind of have like a weekly meeting with yourself where you go, what's going good, what's going bad, and what should I keep? So that's the 111. What is a bad habit that I have? What's one healthy habit I can replace it with? And what's one thing in my life that it's doing me a lot of favors, that makes me feel good, and I should just keep it? Because why that's important is you're assessing everything and you go, hey, that works for me. I'm going
Yeah.
to keep that in my life. All right, the smoking, that's got to go. What can I replace that with? Maybe some
Hmm.
sugar-free candies, maybe just exercising, maybe
Hmm.
any little addition. So the 111 has been a big part of my life, and I try to get all my clients to do that too. Every Sunday night, I sit down with my journal and I just kind of go, okay, how's the week been? Where am I at in my headspace? What are my thoughts? What's been the negative things, the positive? And then at the end of that little check in with myself, I do the 111 where what's one thing that isn't doing me any favors that I do habitually? What's one thing that's great that I need to keep? And what's a new thing that I can add?
I like that. And I like how you mentioned focusing on something that you already do and that is doing good for you because when you're working on your healing journey and your growth journey, whenever you're constantly focusing on what you want to replace, you're constantly focusing on the negative areas of your life. And when you're constantly focusing on negativity, that's all you're going to see. And it is so, so important. to focus also on the areas of life that you are already doing and that is benefiting you, because that's going to encourage you, I already do good things. I can do more good things. And it's not,
Yes.
I'm a completely terrible person who needs to start doing good things. It's,
I'm all about celebrating the little wins.
yes.
You got to celebrate the little wins. You got
Hmm.
to, and why? I mean, it's funny we keep going back to this, but like the making the bed thing.
Hmm.
What if you maybe you have nobody at your house? Maybe nobody's going to come visit you. Maybe it doesn't matter. But why it
Hmm.
matters is because you got a little win. You got out of bed, you made the bed, your room looks a little better. You
Hmm.
can celebrate that. You go, oh, okay, yeah, I made the bed today. What that does is, again, back to the dopamine reward system, it makes you feel good. You did something good. So celebrating every little step because life is a journey. So
Hmm.
you can't. And a lot of us with mental health issues, we focus on the end of that
Hmm.
journey. How do I get over my anxiety, my depression? How do I get to where I want to be in life? And that's all we focus on.
Hmm.
What we're missing is the steps to get there. So if
Hmm.
you can't see the end of the tunnel, if you can't see because your life is so dark right now, just look down and take
Hmm.
that next step.
Yeah. That's definitely something that I like to focus on too, because when you got a long tunnel ahead of you, it can be very hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And that can be scary when you're walking down a long, dark tunnel and you don't know exactly where the end is. That is so scary. And it's nothing that many of us really want to do. Um, but you got to get through it. You have to, we can't stay stagnant. If you want to get better, you have to take the steps and just look down and take the very next step ahead of you. And that's where you start, and you keep going and you keep going, and then all of a sudden you decide to look up and you're like, whoa, there's a light. It's right there. I'm almost there. I can do it.
Yes, yes. I totally agree with that. I love
Hmm.
that.
Thank you. And I love making analogies because when you can picture something and then make it relatable to you, it's a lot easier. At least for me, I'm a very picture person. So
Yeah.
anytime I can put something like that together, I'm like, the light bulb goes off. It clicks.
It's all about the questions we ask ourselves. If
Mhm.
you're asking yourself, how do I get over my anxiety or I'm how do I not be so depressed?
Mhm.
It's funny because your brain's actually going to find reasons why you are depressed because
Mhm.
that's what you're asking yourself the question. So when you ask yourself, what's the next step?
Mhm.
What's the next task? What's the next thing I have to do? Our
Mhm.
brains are a lot like Google. If you ask Google, why is coffee bad for you? You're going to get a million reasons why coffee is bad for you.
Yep.
If you ask Google, why is coffee good for you? You'll now get a million resources why coffee is good for you. Our
Mhm.
brains are the same way. What we're asking ourselves and telling ourselves, that's what we're getting back.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's kind of like the law of attraction, and what you focus on, you get more of. And yeah, I have found it to be very true in life, and I really like to enjoy the small moments and focus on the good any chance that you get.
And when you do and you open your eyes to that, I'm a firm believer in what you just said too. And when you open your eyes to that, it happens fast. You see
Mhm.
more. I used to think the world was a dark place that
Mhm.
had a lot of bad in it and a lot of like you watch the news and everything going on. And I mean,
Mhm.
especially after COVID and what that did to everybody.
Yep.
Um, that's all you see. But when I started opening my eyes to people and impact and the good things happening, I see it more and more every day. I
Mhm.
firmly believe, and that's why, I mean, you're doing the podcast, you're doing your things, I'm writing my book,
Mhm.
other people are doing things every day. I firmly believe that there is a movement because I
Mhm.
see it all over social media.
Mhm.
There is a movement of people that are no longer just getting by or wanting to just, oh, I'm this way and I'm going to be this way for the rest of my life.
Mhm.
They don't particularly know how to get there. I didn't either. But what they're doing is they're wanting to.
Mhm.
And that movement is getting stronger and stronger. There's so many people that still struggle. I'm here today talking to you. I'm not a perfect person that has
Yeah.
everything of my mental health controlled, but I manage it better. And
Mhm.
my life is becoming more fulfilling because of that. So
Yeah.
I can help others that were maybe a 10 with their emotional control being terrible. And now I'm like a 6. So
Mhm.
I can help those 6, 7, 8, 9s, and 10s because that's where I'm at.
Mhm.
So I see that happening every day. And it's the coolest thing because we all know, not just in this country, but all over, the mental health system is backed up. It's
Mhm.
in trouble. There's a lot of different things about it, but I mean, in my city in Green Bay, Wisconsin, it takes a good year, 8 months to a year to get into a therapist, a
Mhm.
psychiatrist, any of that. And then when you do, the psychiatrist talks to you for 15 minutes, gives you a diagnosis, and gives you a medication.
Mhm.
I'm not saying I'm not faulting anybody. It's just that's the system because there's so many people in it.
Mhm.
And that's why I commend people like you and everyone else out there, myself trying to do this, is helping others with the same things we struggle with.
Absolutely. And I like that you mentioned, you're not perfect. Neither am I. And to go back to the tunnel analogy, when you're looking for a coach, you're looking for someone who is just a few steps ahead of you, just a few steps ahead of you in the tunnel to help hold your hand and guide your way. And you start working your way towards that light at the end. Um, and so I think you have a lot
Yes.
of good past experience and especially, overcoming things with the BPD. I know that's been more of a new awareness that's going around, it's not a new diagnosis, but I think there's a lot more awareness about it now, and a lot of
Yes.
people struggle. It can be very, very hard, and to know that there's at least one person out there who has been able to conquer that in a way, even if it's small or a medium way, like conquering any bit of that to where you can have more happiness is so inspiring because I know several people with that diagnosis and they feel so like miserable and sorry for themselves, and they've had that same answer that you got. There's not really a thing to do for it, and it's a lifelong thing, and it sucks getting a diagnosis like that. But to know that there is people out there who have conquered at least portions of it, it's amazing, and it truly gives other people hope.
Yes. And that's one thing I ask every one of my clients, every person I come in contact with on socials, in real life, everything, real life, in person,
Hmm.
everything is stop telling yourself you are depression,
Mm.
you are BPD, you are anxiety, any of your symptoms. Stop telling yourself that's what you are.
Hmm.
Because I'm here to tell you right now that's not who you are. You are so much more than that. Those are symptoms that you experience and maybe don't yet have the tools to manage a little bit better, but you are not those symptoms.
Hmm.
Look deep inside of you and find what is really good about you because it's there. You are so much better than every single one of those symptoms that you think define you.
Hmm.
They do not define you. They are things you struggle with.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. That's a really good way to put it. It's just a struggle, and we struggle with so many things, and we overcome it. And that's all we got to do. We just got to figure out the way to get over it. Not get over it, but overcome it.
And the strength that you
Mhm.
find in yourself when you overcome it, because my transformation happened really fast and a lot of
Mhm.
people are like, oh my god, what did you do? Like it's the strength, it's the discipline, like I
Yeah.
mentioned earlier, setting new standards. You learn discipline and you learn, I'm going to do whatever it takes. And when you do figure out ways and you do whatever it takes, even when you don't want to,
Mhm.
what you learn is a self confidence and a self love that I know out there. I know there's a lot of us that didn't have it. I didn't.
Mhm.
I despised myself for my regrets, my
Mhm.
mistakes, every time I yelled at my kids or my wives or whatever it was, I held on to that. I held on
Mhm.
to all my mistakes and it would haunt me.
Mhm.
Once I had to forgive myself and for the first time look in the mirror and say, I'm proud of you. You're trying. You're doing everything that you can do. And I'm proud of you. Don't stop.
Yeah.
That was the first time that it overcame me. I never it was like a spiritual form
Mhm.
of self-love that I found that I never knew existed. And since that moment, and this was really recent within the
Mhm.
last 6 months, since I've experienced that, it's changed my life.
Good, as it should. Yeah, you deserve that. Because I mean, we're
So I think
all. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I think too many of us hold on to our past mistakes.
Yeah.
Too many of us hold on to that. that time you kind of had a freak out in public and or whatever it may be, that time that you screamed at your kids, you a bad relationship, whatever it was, we hold on to that and we regret that. And what that does is it eats away at our self confidence and our self love. We need to start forgiving ourselves for our
Hmm.
mistakes.
Absolutely. I mean, because we're all just doing our best, and our best is different every day, and our best can evolve every day. And just because we had, that freak out 5 years ago, we're a new person. We have new, capabilities, new ways of dealing with things now. And even though that was us, we are still different, and that's possibly not going to happen again. So why continue to fret over that? Just move forward, learn from the experience, and if it happens again, just do what you can to do better. But you can only do what you know. And so if you don't
Yes.
know how to change that experience into a better one, um, then you just do your best.
Yes. Agreed.
Yeah. Well, I know we could talk forever. There's a lot to go along with this, and you certainly have a lot of experience and a lot of very valuable knowledge. Where can people find you to follow you or to maybe get a hold of you for your program?
So you can find me on Facebook under my name, Brandon, Brandon, Decremer, Decremer. I'm also on Instagram and TikTok under Mental Health Nuts. That's with a Z, Mental Health Nutz. And I'm on Instagram and TikTok that way. I do a YouTube channel under Mental Health Nuts as well. But I'd say Facebook, Instagram are the best ways to contact me.
Okay, great. And I'll make sure to have those linked in the description of this podcast as well. And is there anything else you want to mention, maybe where to get the first heads up of your book being released?
Yeah. The first heads up of my book being released is going to be a release that I'm going to do myself on my socials,
Okay.
and I would also love to mention for all your listeners today that I am an ambassador for a company called Own Your Stigma,
Hmm.
a company that makes customizable clothes and amazing merchandise for people like us, for mental
Hmm.
health sufferers. They do a lot of charity, all kinds of stuff. So any listener today, if they go to ownyourstigma.com and use the mental health nuts with a Z, they can get 15% off there too. And it's awesome clothes. I have a shirt that says self care is badass, and
Love it.
you don't know how many conversations I start just by wearing that shirt.
That's awesome. Yeah, I like that, and I'm familiar with them as well. So absolutely, I'll make sure to put that in the description as well. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Brandon. You really have shared a lot of helpful advice, and your experience, I'm sure, will resonate with a lot of others as well. So I appreciate you sharing all that with us.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, Ivy. Thanks for having me. It's been great to get to know you and have this conversation. And that's what it's all about. Conversations and connections create impacts.
Absolutely. I really agree with that. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Have a beautiful day, everybody.
You do the same. Bye bye.